everyone, today we're working on lesson 6.11 in My Math. Our objective is I will be able to divide decimals by whole numbers. How about your notebook and your math book? To divide a decimal by a whole number, you place the decimal point in the quotient above where it was in the dividend. When we divide with decimals, you'll see that we can't have remainders because we have decimals in our answers. I'll show you that example in a second. But first, let's take a look at this example. 75 2/10 divided by 4. I'm going to estimate this first so that I can check to make sure that my answer is reasonable. With a divisor of 4, I'm thinking of multiples of 4 that are close to 75. And the first thing that comes to my mind is 80. 80 divided by 4 is 20. So I know that my answer should be around 20. Now let's do the division. I have a decimal right here in my dividend. So according to the rule, I have to place this decimal point right above where it was in the quotient. And that's where the decimal will be in my answer. At this point, I can now ignore the decimal point that was in my quotient and divide like normal. How many 4s can I take out of 7? 1. 1 times 4 is 4. 7 minus 4 is 3. Bring down my 5. How many 4s come out of 35? 8. 8 times 4 is 32. Subtract. 35 minus 32 is 3. Bring down the next number. Remember, we're ignoring this decimal point to divide. Divide. How many 4s come out of 32? 8. 8 times 4 is 32. So I have nothing left. So my quotient is 18 8/10. And that is close to my estimate of 20, so I know my answer is reasonable. Let's take a look at another example. We're going to find 276 2/10 divided by 5. So my first step is to take the decimal point and place it directly on top of where it was. Now I can ignore the decimal point and divide like normal. We're going to see as we get to the end of the steps on this one that we have to do something special. And there it is. But let's do the division. How many 5s can I take out of 2? I can't. How many 5s come out of 27? 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Subtract. 27 minus 25 is 2. And bring down your 6. How many 5s come out of 26? 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Subtract. 26 minus 25 is 1. Bring down your 2. Again, we're ignoring this decimal point. How many 5s come out of 12? 2, because 2 times 5 is 10. Subtract 12 minus 10 and you get 2. Now let's pause there. Normally, if this was a whole number, we would say we have a remainder of 2. However, we can't say that anymore because we already have a decimal value in our quotient, which is kind of like a remainder. So we can't put remainder 2 because it's almost like having a second decimal point with numbers after it. It just doesn't make sense. So what we do is we annex a 0 to the end of the dividend if needed. And yes, we need it for this one. So I'm going to annex a 0 at the end of my dividend. Then I'm going to drop that 0, bring it down, and continue dividing. How many 5s come out of 20? 4. 4 times 5 is 20. Subtract. Now we have nothing left over and we can stop. So 276 and 2/10 divided by 5 is 55 and 24 hundredths. Sometimes you'll need to annex multiple zeros to get to nothing left over. Sometimes it'll take a really long time. So always read the directions because often you'll be told to round to the nearest tenth or the nearest hundredth. That way you don't have to keep going on and on and on, although I think it's really fun to do that. All right, let's head into our My Math books. Page 443, dividing decimals by whole numbers. There are 8 4/10 meters left on a roll of ribbon. Nancy wants to cut the ribbon in half. What will be the size of each piece of ribbon? Let's understand the problem. Facts that I know. There are 8.4 meters left on a roll of ribbon. She wants to cut the ribbon in half. What am I asked to find? What's the size of each piece of ribbon? You have to know that when you cut something in half, you divide it by 2. So half equals dividing by 2. For an estimate, we're taking 8 4/10 and we're saying that's pretty close to 8. And I can mentally do 8 divided by 2, which is 4. So we know our answer should be around 4. Step 1 is to place the decimal point directly above the decimal point in the dividend. Raise the roof, put it right on top. Now we can ignore that decimal and just divide. How many 2's come out of 8? 4. 4 times 2 is 8. Bring down your 4. How many 2's come out of 4? 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Nothing left over. So 8 4/10 divided by 2 is 4 2/10. Each piece of ribbon will be 4 2/10 meters long. Is that close to our estimate of 4? Definitely. I skipped the lesson on models because I've found over the years that it confuses more kids than it helps. But if you'd like to check this out, go for it. If not, let's go to the next page. Find $6.54 divided by 12. Round to the nearest cent. Okay, that means round to the nearest penny or to the nearest hundredths place. So let's again place that decimal point directly above where it was in our dividend. It was here, let's put it here. And now we divide. How many 12's come out of 6? None. Some of you put an X here, and you'll see why it has a 0 in a minute, since we're dealing with a decimal. How many 12's come out of 65? Remember, we're ignoring that decimal point at this time. 12 can come out of 65 5 times, which is 60. 65 minus 60 is 5. Bring down your 4. How many 12's come out of 54? That would be 4, because 4 times 12 is 48. 54 minus 48, don't forget to borrow. 14 minus 8 is 6. Bring down the 0. Was that 0 originally in our problem? No. It was originally $6.54. But remember, we can't have a remainder, so we have to annex the 0, step 3 here, and bring it down. How many 12's come out of 60? 5. Because 5 times 12 is 60. Now we have nothing left, we can stop. Remember, we have to round this to the nearest penny or hundredths or cent. So when we have 545 thousandths, and we round to the nearest hundredths, 5 and above give it a shove, so the 4 becomes a 5. So $6.54 divided into 12 gives us 55 cents. You can use multiplication to check your work. Okay? All right, at this time, please continue with the guided practice, and then the independent practice, and then the problem solving. As always, if you have questions or need help, raise your hand. Don't forget, there are 2 major rules for this lesson. Rule number 1, slide that decimal point directly on top of where it was. Rule number 2, you can't have a remainder, so you might need to annex a 0 in the dividend, drop it down, and keep dividing. I will see you soon. Thanks for watching.